Hi computer scientists, Mr. Stafford here, and today I wanted to talk to you about Unit 6, Lesson 2, Exploring Integer and Double Objects. The first level has us look at a program and predict what is going to get printed out. So, read the program, make a prediction, type it in the text box, and do that now. And when you run it, you'll see what happens. So compare the output with your prediction, and it says the sum is, and then a string of numbers. And if we're looking at the data.txt, we'll see all of these numbers, and what we'll notice is it goes 380, 413, 114. And this says 380, 413, 114. And what's happened is we are creating a string called sum, and we are adding those strings together, or concatenating those strings together. So at first glance it may look like a mathematical operation, but we're really just concatenating those strings together. So go ahead and tick finish, and then it says practice working with integer and double classes by declaring and initializing an integer object. So integer I is going to be equal to a new integer. And then it says print the integer object's value. So I'm going to do system.out.print. And I'm going to print out I, run this and see what happens. And it says no suitable constructor found for integer, no arguments. So I haven't put an integer in here. So I'm going to go ahead and put 7. And it prints out 7. And let's do that for a double object. So I'm going to do double. E is going to be equal to a new double. And let's feed it 4.5. And then we're going to print that. Let's print out our double, which we have named D. And we have 7 and 4.5. So we see that we are using these constructors now to build those integer and double objects. And we can leave off this new and just do integer again equals -4, and we'll print that out. And I'm going to print integer again. And let's do that same thing with a double. So I'm going to do double D again equals a -6.7. And system .out.println, and I'm going to do D again. And we can print these out and see what will happen. And you can see that we can either use the this constructor or just initialize them automatically. Okay, I'm going to tick finish. The next level says in data reader, so flow over to data reader, write the methods convert int list and convert double list by, and then it gives us some instructions. So I'm going to go convert int list first. It says, 1, using the Parseint method from the integer class to convert the values in the string array. So what we have is a string array, its name is list, getting fed into the convert int list. And what I want to do is take a look at so we've got a file called data file and a scanner called input. And this data file equals new file name, and the input equals the scanner of data file. And then in console we can kind of get a look at what we're reading into this. We have an integer data and double data, and those are .txt files, which are text files. So what we're trying to do is parse that information into an int array. So what I'm going to do, the first thing is in the convert int list, it makes an int array of size 0, but I want it to be the same size as the list that I'm feeding in. So I'm going to do list.length. And then what I'm going to do is a for loop, and I'm going to do for int I equals 0. I is going to be less than list.length. And I plus plus, open this up. And I'm going to say int list at index I is going to be equal to, and then it says I have to use the parseint method from the integer class. So I'm going to say integer dot parse int, and then I'm going to feed it list at index I. What I want to do is run this and see how that looks. Okay, so I have an integer list, a double list, and then the new integer list. So I have created over here in my console, I have created an int array using that parseint method from the integer class. So this says create int and double arrays by converting the string arrays. So I've done that here, but I haven't written the convert double list method yet. And it's very similar to the convert int list. So what I'm actually going to do is copy that. You know what? I'm not going to copy it. I'm just going to do this. So list.length. I'm going to copy my for loop. Okay, so I'm starting at I equals 0, I is less than list.length. List is the same name. We're using the same name for that parameter. And then instead of int list, I want double list. And instead of the integer class, we're working with the double class. And instead of parsing an int, I'm going to parse double. Okay, let's clear the console and run this. And we have a new double list. So the first double list is our strings, and the second new double list are the doubles that we've created. All right, click Finish. And then it says, what happens when you exceed the limits for the minimum and maximum integer values? Find out by decrementing smallest and print its new value, and increment biggest and print its value. So what I want to do right now is run these. And so my smallest before the decrement is negative 2 billion and some change. And the biggest is 2 billion and some change. So let's print this. I'm going to copy and paste that. And smallest after decrement is smallest minus 1. I'm going to wrap that in parentheses so that just to make sure that it does that calculation. I also want to make a new line right before I print it, just so I can make it look pretty. And let's paste biggest after increment, and so I'm going to go biggest plus 1, and let's see what happens. So when we run this, the minimum value for the integer is negative 2 billion and some change, and the maximum value for an integer is positive 2 billion and some change. But when I decrement the smallest, what it does is it does this underflow error where it wraps me to the biggest maximum int value that we can hold. So we see that the smallest after the decrement, I subtracted, and it gave me this positive 2 billion. And same kind of concept with the biggest. The maximum value that we had before was positive 2 billion. And so then I get this overflow error where it gives me the smallest negative int value, the minimum value that ints could be. Okay, and then you have your check your understandings, finish those up, and that's it for Unit 6, Lesson 2.